Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. This time I'm watching Internet vs. Ocean, the essential wires we never think about by Mapmen. I don't know how they managed to make a whole 10-minute long video about the wires that are in the ocean, but somehow they did. So let's check it out.
Can you imagine a world without the internet?
Yes, and it was marvellous.
Welcome to Mapmen.
We're the men.
And here's the map.
On one hand, agree. But on the other hand,
Although
a
most
world
of us
like
use
that
the internet at least
would
every
suck.
other day, nobody understands how it works.
All we know is that it's very big, very clever, very important, and
everything has its
impossible
pros
to
and
show on a
cons,
map.
internet
Then why are we
included.
doing an episode about it?
Because I was lying. Take a look at this map. It shows all the undersea cables that connect the world's computers, and looking at this map reveals a surprising amount about how the modern world works.
Whilst we can't wait to show you all the weirdest and wonderfulest bits of this exciting chart, before the geography lesson we need to put the globes that fell off the wall
Was that
back on the
planned
wall
or
and then
just
give you a quick history lesson.
accidental?
For the vast majority of human history, a message could only travel as fast as a human, meaning it was normal to wait days or even months to receive a very important message.
Very slightly faster methods did exist. Smoke signals, water clocks, beacons, flags.
But these only worked for
later on you
predetermined
got
messages.
horses,
If you wanted to send a completely original thought, such as Thursday
then
night
radio.
Fish basket hollybobs, that was impossible. Until
In 1777, a French chap called Claude Chappe invented a way to send long-distance messages using an alphabet made up of symbols that could be seen from a very long way away. On a hilltop, one person operated a machine that could rotate the position of two large sticks.
and on another hilltop, a second person would copy the shape, relaying it onto the next hill, and so on, until it was finally decoded at the other end.
Chappe called his system the telegraph, from the French télégraphe, from the Greek télégraphe.
It was now possible to send a message from Paris to Lille in just 12 minutes rather than the usual 12 hours.
Sacré bleu!
At its peak, the French telegraph network looked like this.
This is the earliest example of a physical network built to transmit.
I'm assuming that all these telegraphs were built in major population centers, so the areas that are just in between probably were very rural and didn't have many people in them, because why would you waste resources on getting messages to them?
Information at high speeds across long distances. It was the beginning of the internet.
So why aren't we still using mechanical telegraphs today?
Bad question. The flaws were obvious. It only worked in the daytime, it only worked in good weather, and it required lots of
Could you
highly
really
trained
call that the
workers who were
beginning of the
vulnerable to
internet?
mistakes and bribery.
Thankfully, long-distance messaging took a necessary huge leap forward in the 1830s, when a pair of British inventors had a much better idea: the electric telegraph.
The electric telegraph sent pulses of electricity across copper wires that could be stretched pretty much any distance.
Okay, I guess the telegraph
It was
would be the
beginning
first
of
step
internet.
towards
A
creating
contraption
the
like
internet.
This, which by the way would be an awesome clue in an escape room, was used to convert these electric pulses into almost every letter of the alphabet.
And then a very clever man called Samuel Morse, named after Morse code, invented an easy-to-learn alphabet made
Named
up of...
after Morse code.
Morse code was a massive improvement. It only needed 2 Ys instead of 6, you could finally send messages quickly, and you could finally spell quickly.
Morse code became a vital
Well,
tool for the military,
I wouldn't call that
railways,
quickly.
journalism and big business. But if Morse code was going to achieve the absolute world domination it was surely destined for, one final hurdle had to be overcome.
Oh no,
Wet
no.
Susan.
The most significant advance in telegraph technology came in 1850, when the aptly named English Channel Submarine Telegraph Company
Boring.
nervously laid the first cable under the sea, desperately hoping they wouldn't electrocute all the fish.
To the relief of haddock everywhere, it worked.
Oh, that wouldn't
the world's
happen.
first submarine telegraph in the English
Right?
Channel successfully allowed communication across
Surely-
the sea between two
surely
countries.
not, no.
It was the beginning of the internet.
By the mid-19th century, two enormous networks had grown in Europe and America.
The next logical step was to connect these two networks together. But the Atlantic Ocean was
That's a long way.
very big.
Well, I guess you
Nobody
could go
knew how
from Britain
telegraph
to
technology
Iceland
could
to
traverse it.
Greenland and then
Until,
to
that is,
Canada.
an American businessman with a beard and no moustache, called Cyrus Westfield, finally figured it out.
We need a very long cable. But laying a very long cable.
How would
under
you
the
even
ocean
lay that
presented
on
some
the
unique
ocean
challenges.
floor?
It took several failed attempts
During
to lay
these
a cable
times.
that worked. The first cable wasn't long enough. The second cable snapped.
Oh,
the
no.
third cable fell in the water. The fourth cable wasn't compatible with the fifth cable and couldn't be joined up in the middle.
Finally, 4 years later, Cyrus's first transatlantic
Cable and couldn't be joined up in the middle.
Imagine going through all of that thinking, we're finally done, just connect them, and then it turns out they're not compatible. All of that work for nothing. That's far worse than any of the previous failed attempts.
4 years later, Cyrus's first transatlantic cable was complete.
Oh, they just went straight
On
from
August 16,
Ireland to
1858,
Newfoundland.
Queen Victoria
Okay.
sent the very first transatlantic text message, reading,
"Glory to God in the highest, on earth peace and goodwill toward men."
and it was sent to President James Buchanan.
At just 2 minutes per letter, the message was received in little over 17 hours. The cable stopped working after just a few weeks, but it didn't matter. The technology was proven possible.
The very same
After just a few weeks, but it didn't matter. The tech.
They did make one from Britain to Iceland to Greenland and to Canada. And then they made one to Spain and some islands in the middle of the Atlantic. I'm assuming there's islands there. I mean, otherwise why would they lay it down like that? I wonder how long those next ones worked. Was it also just a few weeks, or did they last longer?
Technology was proven possible.
The very same cable laying technology was used to lay more and more cables all over the world, each one more reliable than the last, which grew into the phone network, which grew into the internet. It was the beginning of the internet. Cable laying is done pretty much the same way today.
Drop it in.
Only nowadays, when the cable's nearer the shore, they tend to
Bury it a bit.
for good measure.
But the one big difference is what's in the wires.
A modern subsea internet cable is about as thick as a human garden hose. The business bit carrying the actual
That's not
data
very
is
thick.
a tiny bunch of fibre optic cables.
It's coated in a protective layer of polyethylene, copper sheathing, aluminium or steel wires according to taste, and lovingly smothered in Vaseline.
5 minutes and 17 seconds to cover the entire history of long-distance communication, and we didn't miss a single detail out.
What about radio?
Which means we are now finally ready to take a good look at the gorgeous map of all the undersea cables that exist today.
And time to skip the break.
This delightful,
So after 7 minutes, we're actually here now.
colourful map from Telegeography's submarinecablemap.com is a true map of the internet. It shows all of the 552 and counting undersea cables which allow very different parts of the world to use
So
the
it's
exact
over
same
500.
internet.
There is, of course, a much denser network of wires over land. After all, landlocked countries
course.
deserve the internet too. But it's nowhere near as interesting to look at.
Some of the unlikely routes on this map reveal that it's cheaper and faster to lay a sea cable even when a land route is available.
Such as these ones that bounce around the outside of Africa and South
That's
America.
cheap.
This
I guess
one
it
that
would
goes
be
all the way
cheaper.
over the top of
All you
Russia,
have to do is
and
lay
this
the
one that goes
cable.
from America to America.
The clear, clean and
Instead of
mostly
having
straight
to-
lines of this undersea cables map, ignoring Southeast Asia, strikingly show which parts of the world are most interested in which other parts. North America and Europe, for example, have got way more cables connecting them than seemingly necessary, reflecting the huge amount of cross-continental commerce and communication that goes on between them.
Whilst data from Australia to South America is happy to take the more scenic route.
So it's perhaps no coincidence that this map so strongly resembles maps of major flight paths and shipping lanes.
It's also
Yeah, it's
no
basically the
coincidence
same.
that countries with the fewest cable connections tend to be the world's poorest. Just one cable serves the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Sierra Leone and Liberia.
But does the number of connections you have, and
I mean, to be fair, how
whom
many people
actually
they can
matter?
even
Wouldn't
afford
one
to
cable
have
each be
internet?
Plenty of internet to be going round.
Sadly not. These cables are susceptible to breakage due to sabotage from hostile countries, earthquakes and being eaten by sharks. So it makes sense to have at least a couple of spares.
In
Sharks?
2022, the
Sharks
Shetland
eat
Islands
these?
became even
They
more
bite them?
alarmed when their key cable was shredded by an overzealous fishing boat.
I'll tell you who the killer was. It was...
Duncan must be home.
More importantly, the cables under the sea carry about $10 trillion worth of financial transactions every day.
And if those cables failed, nobody would be able to buy pink suitcases, funny hats, teddy bears or basketballs.
So if these cables are so completely critical to life in 2023, or whichever year it is where you are, shouldn't we be worried about who actually owns them?
Yes, we should, because increasingly
Who
these
does
cables are
own
being
them?
built by a very
It was the beginning of the internet.
small handful of powerful companies.
Google, Microsoft and Meta have spent billions of human dollars building their own massive private cables.
And this matters.
Okay, so
because
it's
we all
owned
then
by the
become
big tech
dependent on these
companies.
largely unregulated companies for a crucial piece
shouldn't
of
really be
21st century
surprising.
infrastructure. But also, can we really be sure these tech giants aren't listening into their fancy hoses to collect yet more of the valuable private data belonging to you and me?
I mean, who
With so
cares?
much of our daily technology use now,
Let's be honest, what do we have to hide? The only important information I have is like my bank account. There you go, that's it. Other than that, they can take whatever data they want, I don't care. I'm just some random person. What are they going to do with it? It's not like it's going to affect me in any way.
wireless, be it the phone in your pocket or the router in the awkward bit of the drawer next to the TV, it's important to remind ourselves that the internet is not some invisible benevolent technology. It still requires physical things, servers, wires, data centers.
It's particularly telling that we refer to the mysterious...
What did that say?
Wires, data centers.
World's most boring photograph.
It's particularly telling that we refer to the mysterious netherworld where all the world's computers connect as the cloud.
Nether?
It's actually on the
Like
bottom
in
of the
Minecraft?
ocean, the opposite of a cloud.
So, next time you send an email, stream a TV show, or listen to the audio only of 20% of an episode of Map Men with the video minimized and a tab in the background, remember,
it's been through a layer of Vaseline.
I used to believe that the wires were owned by countries, but it really shouldn't come as a surprise that they're owned by the big tech companies. Now imagine if one of those wires gets cut in a critical location and an entire country completely loses access to the internet. It would be chaos. Pure anarchy, really. Think of just how much damage you could cause with cutting one wire. Well, a few wires, probably. One wouldn't really be enough to completely shut down a country. Yeah, that's kind of scary when you think about it. You could just be watching something on your PC and suddenly your internet just goes out and that's it. Your entire country suddenly just doesn't have access to it. But that's enough of that. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, you know, the usual YouTube stuff. And if you're interested, why not check out this video right here. And with that, I hope I will see you in the next video.